Okay, let's untack this. Today, we're diving into a really interesting topic.
Yeah, the whole intersection of faith and finance.
Exactly. Specifically for Muslims trying to navigate, the modern financial world. We're looking at what earning halal money actually means.
And we're drawing from that article on the Atheist blog, Money Mindset, How to Earn Halal Money.
That's the one. So our mission here really is to pull out the key ideas from this source.
Trying to understand their perspective on how a Muslim might approach finances in line with their faith.
Right, balancing the deen, the religion, and the dunya, the worldly stuff. And it seems like it's not just about stacking up wealth. The article suggests that's maybe not the main goal.
Definitely not the ultimate goal, according to the source. It seems much more focused on how you pursue and manage wealth.
Okay, so we'll look at the principles they discuss, like sticking to halal means, avoiding haram stuff, debt management, investing, giving back.
Yeah, all those aspects.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me. The source gives pretty specific advice and examples.
It moves beyond just the theory.
Yeah, into practical steps, tools you can use today. So whether you're looking to align your own finances this way, or maybe understand a different viewpoint, or if you're just curious.
Then stick around.
Exactly. Let's explore this perspective.
Well, what struck me right off the bat was how the article kind of sets the stage.
How so?
It really grounds everything in like a higher purpose. It says point blank that material stuff, big house, fancy car, shouldn't be the be all and end all for a Muslim.
Okay.
The focus shifts to how money's earned and handled. It's seen more as a tool to fulfill your life's purpose, which the article frames as worship.
So it's not really about chasing wealth itself.
Precisely. I mean, providing for your family is obviously important, and the source acknowledges that effort is needed, even though Allah is seen as the ultimate provider.
Right.
But the core idea is making sure the income itself is permissible or halal.
Okay, so the source of the income is absolutely key. What does the article say is haram or forbidden then?
It's pretty direct. It warns about being really careful with jobs or businesses involved in prohibited things.
Like what?
Well, obvious ones like alcohol, but also anything based purely on interest, RIMA.
Makes sense. The actual product or service matters. Does it stop there, though, or does it talk about how you do business?
Oh, absolutely. It really hammers home the importance of transparency and fairness.
In all dealing.
In all financial dealings, yeah. Doesn't matter who it's with. Cheating someone, trying to get ahead unfairly for a quick buck, strongly advised against.
And why is that? What's the downside, according to this source, of earning money that way?
It introduces this idea of no baraka.
No baraka.
Yeah. It's not just about, lacking financial success. It's deeper. It means lacking blessing or spiritual growth or any lasting good from those earnings. Money earned unfairly, from this viewpoint, just doesn't have that essential quality.
No baraka.
Yeah.
That reframes things, doesn't it? Wealth isn't just quantity, it's blessing, purpose. Okay, so what about after you've earned income? How does this source suggest managing it?
Well, one big point is that hoarding money, just letting it pile up, is discouraged.
Why?
Getting too attached to worldly things is seen as a problem. Plus, the source mentions a very practical issue with just sitting on cash.
Inflation.
Exactly. Idle money loses its value. We all know that.
Yeah, the constant battle.
Yeah.
So if holding cash isn't the way, what does this source suggest for preserving or maybe growing wealth within these halal principles?
Investing. Strongly advocates for it.
Right.
Positions it as a permissible way to generate profit and, fight inflation. And it highlights that finding Islamic finance institutions and products is actually getting easier worldwide.
And it gives some specific examples, which is helpful. What kinds does it mention?
It talks about the rise of online platforms, fintech solutions. Crowdfunding comes up as a popular route.
Investment crowdfunding specifically.
Yeah, where you invest in businesses or projects.
And its name's ISIS, right?
Yes, Aethys is mentioned. It's described as a P2P platform focusing on impact-driven halal investments. The source points out these platforms can kind of lower the barrier to entry, letting groups invest smaller amounts.
Interesting. It also brings up yielders from the UK. What's their angle, according to the article?
Yielders is presented as focusing specifically on rent-yielding property.
Real estate.
Yeah, making property investment often seen as pretty stable, more accessible for people who don't have huge SAWs to invest up front.
Okay. And what if you prefer something more automated or guided?
The article points to robo-advisors. WAD is named.
About that, okay.
Yeah, designed to pick and manage portfolios of permissible stocks based on Sharia principles. And for a more hands-on, personalized approach, it mentions Sharia portfolio.
What do they do?
There, you can work with a professional advisor to build a strategy that fits your specific goals, your timeline, how much risk you're comfortable with.
So quite a range of options discuss direct investing, managed portfolios, all within that halal framework.
Right.
But it's also pretty clear on what not to do, right?
Oh, absolutely. Very clear that conventional banking products based on riba interest are a no-go.
So standard savings accounts, CDs, money markets.
All mentioned as things to avoid. The suggested alternative is an Islamic savings account.
Right. And what about bonds? Things like corporate bonds, treasury bonds. Those are common investments.
Also flagged as interest-based, so therefore to be avoided according to this source.
The alternative.
It contrasts them with sukuk, describes sukuk as the Islamic equivalent of bonds. The insight offered is that while the return on sukuk might sometimes be lower than conventional bonds, it's presented as maybe less volatile, a more secure option for some investors.
Okay, that covers earning and investing new money. But, the reality is people might already have investments or loans that don't fit these feasibles. How does the article deal with that?
That's a really important point it tackles, actually. For existing impermissible investments like this conventional bonds, CDs, maybe stocks and companies doing haram things.
Yeah.
The primary advice is dispose of them, get rid of them. And any profit earned from them shouldn't be kept, it should be deeding away as sadaqah, charity.
Wow. Okay. That sounds straightforward, but potentially quite difficult in practice.
Yeah.
Does the source acknowledge that? Like, what if selling immediately means a huge loss?
It does, yeah. It raises that exact point that immediate disposal could cause real financial hardship for the person or their family.
So what then?
In those cases, it mentions that some scholars apparently offer a more nuanced take, suggesting that if you form a clear, sincere intention to get rid of those assets as soon as it's more practical or less financially damaging, that might be acceptable. It's about balancing the ideal with reality.
That nuance seems important. Okay, shifting from investments, what about debt? Huge part of modern finance. How's that discussed?
That it gets addressed very directly, especially high-interest stuff like credit cards. The advice is basically, make paying off credit card debt a top priority in your budget because those interest rates are crippling. Then, once it's clear, the aim should be to not get back into that kind of debt.
And the big one, for many people, conventional mortgages.
Yeah, conventional mortgages are presented as problematic.
Because of the interest.
Exactly, because they're built around riba, interest, paid over potentially decades. The article states this isn't Islamically permissible.
So what does the source suggest if someone already has a conventional mortgage? Same advice as investments.
Similar thinking. Selling the house immediately might be impractical or harmful.
Right.
So again, the emphasis is on making the intention to clear that interest-based debt as soon as you feasibly can. But crucially, it points to a practical alternative, refinancing.
Refinancing into what?
Into an Islamic home financing plan. It actually names a couple of U.S. companies as examples, like Guidance Residential and UIF Corporation, that offer Sharia-compliant options.
Interesting. It feels like the article moves from these big financial products and debts towards more like personal habits and mindset shifts too.
It definitely does. It stresses basic financial good practice, like tracking your finances.
Income and expenses.
Both. Even if it feels like a chore, the source highlights it as pretty necessary.
Because if you don't track it, you don't know where it's going, right?
Yeah.
Did it mention any tools?
It did, yeah. Notes that apps can make it easier. It specifically names Kestrel.
Kestrel.
Yeah. Describes it as a money management app designed to help Muslims budget, save, and invest in line with their values. So, using modern tools for traditional principles.
And tracking presumably helps with focusing on long-term goals,
Yeah.
which the article also mentions.
Exactly. It contrasts that short-term hit of pleasure from, instant gratification spending.
We all know that feeling.
Right. With the deeper satisfaction that comes from working towards and achieving a significant long-term financial goal. It's about cultivating patience, discipline.
There's also a point in there about moderation, isn't there?
Yes. Advises avoiding being excessive, even when enjoying blessings. It specifically calls out wastefulness as a kind of ingratitude.
So mindful consumption.
That's the idea. Using resources thoughtfully is part of appreciating them.
And speaking of appreciation, it connects gratitude directly to finance as well.
It does. It encourages taking time each day, just reflecting on the good things you have. Acknowledging things could always be tougher.
And the point is,
The source suggests that cultivating this grateful attitude can actually lead to an increase in blessings.
that's a powerful link between mindset and, well, your financial situation as presented here. And finally, the article talks quite a bit about giving back.
Yeah, this is framed as a way to increase real wealth. Giving from what you have isn't just about money, though.
Uh,
The article includes volunteering time, using your talents, as forms of sadaqah, charity. And the key insight here, according to the source, is almost counterintuitive,
which is,
that charity doesn't actually decrease your wealth.
charity does not decrease one's wealth. How?
Mm-hmm.
How did the article explain that? It seems like basic math suggests otherwise if you give something away.
Well, it doesn't dive into like complex economic models or anything,
Got it.
but the implication seems tied back to those earlier ideas of baraka and divine provision. The suggestion is that giving, especially with the right intention, a clean heart, as the article puts it, brings blessings.
Blessings that might not just be financial.
Exactly. They could manifest in many ways, ultimately meaning you don't truly lose anything in a holistic sense.
Yeah.
It circles back to seeing wealth as a kind of trust, something to be used for a higher purpose. And paradoxically, using it that way leads to an increase, maybe in well-being, spiritual richness, not just dollars and cents.
That really ties it all together, doesn't it? The
Yeah.
spiritual and the practical. It's not just earning and spending, but the why and the how.
It's viewing wealth as a tool, maybe even a test, meant to be earned, managed, and shared in specific ways that align with faith, aiming for, well, divine pleasure rather than just piling it up.
So what does this all mean? Wrapping up, we've really dug into this article's perspective on earning halal money.
Yeah, starting with that core principle, seek income only through permissible means, and that huge emphasis on being transparent, fair in your dealings.
Contrasting that with the idea of no baraka if earnings are prohibited.
Yeah.
We looked at the concerns raised about just hoarding cash, inflation eating away at it.
Right, and then the alternative suggested for investing Islamic finance institution, those online platforms like ISIS for impact investing, or yielders for property.
And services like the robo-advisor WAD
Yeah.
or personalized help from Sharia portfolio.
All while clearly saying, steer clear of conventional interest-based stuff, savings accounts, bonds, both corporate and treasury.
And contrasting those with Islamic options like sukuk or specific Islamic savings accounts.
We also touched on the practical advice for dealing with existing situations that might not align.
Like what to do with impermissible investments. The advice being dispose of them, give the gains to charity.
And tackling debt, especially high-interest credit cards, making that a priority. And the big one, conventional mortgages.
Highlighting the issue with interest there, but also mentioning potential solutions like refinancing through companies such as Guidance Residential or UIF Corporation.
And emphasizing that clear intention and taking practical steps matter in those tough spots.
Then we moved beyond the specific products to those broader habits the article stressed.
Like the need to track your finances, maybe using tools like that Kestrel app mentioned.
Focusing on long-term goals instead of just instant spending gratification.
Practicing moderation, avoiding wastefulness.
Cultivating that daily sense of gratitude for blessings.
And embracing the idea that giving back, sadaqah, whether it's money or your time and skills, actually increases your real wealth.
This journey through the source really lays out quite a detailed framework, doesn't it? Integrating faith and finance with practical examples.
It absolutely challenges that conventional view of wealth as just, how much you have in the bank. Which brings us to maybe a final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah.
If true wealth, as this source portrays it, isn't solely about accumulation, but fundamentally about how you earn, how you manage, and how you share what you're given, how might adopting even parts of that perspective change your own definition of financial success or even abundance?